I'm Jazz. I'm a spiritual teacher, and I'm an Akashic Records reader. I'm doing coaching for empowered women and for women on a mission, women in business, so that your business, which is an extension of you, really feels natural and you just feel good doing your business. You feel empowered, you feel aligned, and you don't feel cheesy or sleazy doing your marketing. Today, I am talking with one of my good friends, and I'm sure we'll have lots of good laughs along the way. This is Candy Hozza. Hi, Candace.
Hi.
So Candace is located in Pennsylvania, near Hershey's, so chocolate lovers.
Ergo, the name Candy.
Yes.
My ultimate dream is to live on Hershey Avenue. I think it'd be, so cool. Candace Hozza, Hershey Avenue, Chocolate Town, PA.
Just have a bit of red wine there too, and it's a slice of heaven.
I'm in.
Good. And today we're talking about the Akashic Records. This is one thing that Candace and I have in common, is to offer our services to women for their healing through the Akashic Records. We both enter the Akashic Records in a way that's a little bit different. And we found when we met that it's quite complementary as well. Candace, I met for the first time at a retreat in Arizona. It was just so gorgeous. Like there, we went to Sedona together, visited the desert, visited all the vortices and everything. We just had a grand old time in Arizona. So we'll talk just a little bit about our trip, our trippy trip in Arizona. And also our intention for today is to give you, the viewer, more information on what are the Akashic Records, so that you know a little bit more what we do in terms of our work. And just to introduce ourselves to you, we have about an hour. Of course, we can talk about hours and hours and hours on what the Akashic Records are, but we want to really cover these points. So what are the Akashic Records? How do we use the Akashic Records as practitioners to help you? And how did it change our lives? And how can it change your life? Right? So anything else that we really want to cover?
I want to have fun with you.
Oh, yes.
I want to give our audience great information. I want to have fun. So I think we got it.
Yeah, we do. We always have fun when we're together.
Absolutely.
We do. So tell us a little bit more about you to start with. So
I worked at a university for 33 years, and I'm recently retired. About, in 1996, I don't know how many years ago that was, I got in touch with angels, talking to angels, and it was a happy coincidence. I had a foot that was really messed up and I couldn't walk on it. I got stuck at home and I turned on the TV, which of course people that work for a living, you don't get to watch afternoon TV. And there was this show and there was a group of women talking about that you could just talk to your angels. And I just found that fascinating. And I remember the first book I bought was by Kim O'Neill. There were 3 books. I can't remember the other 2. And I started to read it. And while I started to read it, I instantly started to contact my angels, but then I would put the book down before another critical chapter. So one of the critical chapters was, once you start talking to your angels, you have to set a day and time to talk to them again, because they're not human. So they're so excited to talk to you that they don't shut up. So, I was lying in bed at night. I'm like, I can't sleep. They keep talking to me. So when I flipped through a few more pages, it said, make sure you tell them what date and time you're going to talk again. I did that, and then things settled down a little bit, but they're quite excited to help you. And I did that for a whole bunch of years. And about 6 years ago, I was going through personal coaching. Is it all right to say all this now? Are we good?
Yeah, of course.
So I can get chatty, so just cut me off, Jazz. And I do want to thank you for today, by the way. So I was going through some personal coaching, and I got so far, I really accomplished a lot of goals and a lot of healing. But there were a few sticky wickets that just I couldn't get through. So my coach said to me at the end of our 6 months or 3 months or whatever it was, she said, you know, I have a friend and she does coaching through the Akashic Records. I'm like, well, what's the Akashic Records? And so I reached out to this person and I start having my coaching through this person as well. And I was able to break through many blocks and barriers. And what I didn't know that was happening is when she'd say, can I open your records? I was opening my records because of my intuition. I didn't know that you couldn't. So when she said, can I open your records? I thought she meant we were both going in. So after a few sessions, she's kind of said, do you see that too? Do you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm seeing that. And so I think after a while, we put together that I was actually in my records with her. So then she said, well, I offer training. And so I took the training. It was a level 1 training. And that was just so you could do it for yourself. The unfortunate news that I got at that moment was when I opened up my records, they said to me, you're going to be doing this for other people. And I said, thanks, but I don't think so. And I was just so nervous that, like, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if that's not real? Like, even though I'd been doing it for probably 20 years of talking to the angels and documenting it, you still, at that moment, I think, you know, this is a big responsibility. So it took me probably a year and a half and 3 more trainings. Like, it was a 3-level course before I felt confident enough to, I saw somebody in need. And I saw that person in such need. I thought, I just can't walk away from this and not at least offer it. So I offered it to that person and she just loved it. And she probably has been one of my coaching clients the longest. So that's kind of how the whole thing started.
Cool. And that brought up quite a few interesting points that I'd like to dive into just a little bit more, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
One of them is, you mentioned that you work through lots of blocks and restrictions going through the Akashic Records. Can you tell us more a little bit about those blocks and restrictions?
Well, the first, I'm going to, if it's all right to be real, I'm going to actually talk about my personal block because it was huge. I was adopted and I was in the most loved family. You know, I always felt so accepted and so loved. My father slept underneath my crib on a hardwood floor for 2 months. They were actually, in some regards, obsessed about, you know, this little tiny baby that they waited 10 years to receive. And so the weird thing about me was I never felt completely accepted. So, like, at school, I kind of always felt a little on the outskirts, even in the family, which my family never made me feel that way, not even an ounce. But internally, I felt these feelings of rejection, and I could never figure it out. So one of the blocks that I worked through was this feeling of rejection. Now, I do want to put a little story in this, is that I did meet my biological mother. And she said that I was her only child, and she stood in a closet every single day at 17, unwed and pregnant, scared. And she would pound on her stomach and said, I hate you. I don't want you. Every single day she did this throughout the entire pregnancy.
Wow.
She did say when I came out, she said, I'd never experienced anything like that in my life since. She said, she looked down at me and she said, oh my gosh, this is such a miracle. And she wasn't able to hold me. However, can you see where my block came from? I was encanted, you know, actually, like, this was like almost programmed inside me as I hate you, I don't want you to be inside of me. And here's this little developing soul trying to come into this world. And so there was that disconnect. And so working with the Akashic Records and also several other modalities, NLP included, neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm also certified in. With those multiple modalities, I was really able to find this level of acceptance, kind of to a soul level, basically. So the other thing, can I just say a little bit more, and this isn't personal, it's something in regard to my clients, or even just maybe to the audience that's listening right now. Have you ever seen a pattern repeat? Like, so you see a woman or your aunt, and somehow you heard that she was unwed and pregnant, and then she has a daughter, and the next thing you know, she was 16 and unwed and pregnant. And then, if you're old enough, like me, you start seeing that there's different patterns that repeat in families. The same thing for finances. There's just patterns that you look at in a family line, and it's almost like, is this genealogical? With the Akashic Records, you can release these blocks that are actually genealogical. So there is a list, and I'll go over that if it's all right to do now.
Sure.
There's a list about vows. So you could take vows energetically on the other side, because that's our space of truth and love. So when you're on the other side, or even when I open somebody's records and channel the Akashic Records, sometimes I start crying. And sometimes I've known these people that I'm working with for years, but when I open their records, like, I get to see the true essence of them. So when we're on the other side and we're with like our group, our soul group, we make some commitments. We take some vows and some pledges. Sometimes, though, when we get here, some of our old patterns of when we've come before start to kind of come up again. And so there's ways in the Akashic Records to release those vows so that you can live a more full life. So the vows, past life interferences. So if you came back to heal a marriage and the marriage is going bad again, it could be because you guys set up a pact that you're going to try to heal that, but your old patterns kick in. So there's ways to release past life interferences, different hooks and implants. Sometimes you're not around the best people, it just happens. You could be in large crowds, and if you're an intuitive or even emotionally sensitive, these different hooks can come inside you, and it's not like these demonic things. It's just there's little energetic hooks that need to be released. There's energy cords. I've seen that an awful lot when I'm working with divorce. And this energy cord, it almost looks like an umbilical cord from two souls. It's very polluted. And sometimes it takes a while to heal that umbilical cord. Sometimes I can't cut it right away in the first session, that it needs to kind of clean itself out, so to speak. There's genetic imprinting, and that's kind of what I was talking about before, these genetic repeats that you see in your family's line. And there's also cultural imprinting. Just living in a certain culture could give certain imprints. Societal imprinting, like those societal beliefs about women. All these things can keep coming into your soul, right? Because it's such a pure space and it's all about energy. So I think the genius of working in the Akashic Records is being able to release all of those in one session. Sometimes you need multiple sessions to do it, depending on how much. It's just kind of like anything else. You go into a house that's super dirty, you're going to be there a long time cleaning it. Or if you go into a pretty clean house that somebody just moved out of, you can spick and span it in maybe 4 hours. So anyways, that's just kind of my take on healing in the Akashic Records.
There is, and some of that work I do as well. The vows that we make. So we have vows of poverty, vows of obedience, vows of chastity, vows of silence. There's just a big series of vows that we take in past lives, sometimes in this life, sometimes in the in-between, and oftentimes in past lives. So that when women entrepreneurs come and they say, I don't know how to speak my message. My message is just not coming out. And then we go in the Akashic Records and lo and behold, there's a vow of silence. Or a vow of obedience, because they want to obey. Maybe they come from a family that, let's say, like in my instance, my family was very Catholic. And we have some Irish in the family who lived through the potato famine, and they were very poor. So they've made vows and contracts that can stop my flow of abundance now, because there's that imprint like we're talking about. So just, giving some real life experience. So it's energy that restricts the flow. So if you think of our life like a balloon, And when you squeeze a balloon, it pops up at different places, and then the flow of energy cannot go through if you try to blow in the balloon again, but you have your hand, the energy doesn't flow. So that's what a block, a restriction, a vow, a past life contract, that's what it does. The energy can't flow properly. And then we keep repeating what we're comfortable in.
Yeah, exactly.
Negative patterns. And part of that is the ego, right? Because ego wants to get us to the grave. Same old, just get there in one piece. That's it. Don't expand. Don't rock the boat.
And sometimes I truly believe we just don't know how to get rid of it. I didn't come across the Akashic Records until 6 years ago. I mean, I think I heard of it, but I didn't really know what it was. And even working in it, it's really a hard thing to verbally explain.
Yes.
So I heard Andrea Hess explain it one time, and I love how she said this. She's like, it's kind of like the internet. Like, for those of us, like, again, that are old enough to have lived prior to the internet, like, where did this internet thing come from? Or where did being able to pick your phone up and say, Google, search for, and then a question? Basically, the Akashic Records are simply, if you want to take it down and boil it down to the simplicity of it, it's just that. It's basically asking a question of the universe or the universal energy and having Google come back to you and say, this is the answer. That's a simple way of saying it. And I think I loved when she said that, because I used to kind of think, oh my gosh, how am I going to explain this? And I love that explanation.
And that also points to our work as practitioners, because when you do a Google search, you need to know what you're looking for, right? Otherwise, you come back with 2,000 different answers.
Exactly.
So what we learn when we go for our training is how to ask the right answers so that we can come up with the right answers for the client, because everything, every choice, every action that your soul has made through all its incarnations is there. And the entire knowledge of the universe is there. How to speak with spirit guides, different realms. There's so many portals as well that we can access. So if you just say, like, is this for my highest good? Or, a very generic question, is that person ever going to like me? Well, you can have like 5,000 different things, but they're not all actionable at once. And sometimes we're just not ready to act on the one answer. So that's why it's good to go see practitioners so that you get the right answer to the right question.
And even to help formulate a question.
Yes.
Because I know so many people come to me and I'll say, well, let's set your intention. And they get lost right there for a second. And it's so easy to help them work through just their basic primary question. It takes a couple moments. And then we go from there. The one thing I tell people, and I don't know how this works for you, Jazz, and what I do when I'm channeling somebody's energy is if they sit there and say their question and get really quiet, I can work with that, but I don't feel like I give them the best reading. How, for me, I work with a client is the energy or the flow of their voice and the energy they're putting in the tonality of the question. And even sometimes a small explanation, I will get volumes of information. That if they're just sitting there very quiet, like either nervous or I can help them with being nervous, but sometimes it's like a tire kicker, it's like, oh, I don't know if she's real. I can tell you when we're in that energy, it's so real, and I love being in that energy too. But it's such a beautiful space.
It is.
To get into. And I know for Jazz, you have like feelings that you get. And for me, my primary access is I see and I hear. And then like when we were talking today, I got shivers down my arms. That's not my primary. But when I get that, it's like, oh, that's so cool too. So I know that like I see and I visually see things. I hear things. And they often talk to me in what's the word I want to say? They'll give me analogies.
Right.
Sometimes an analogy of my own life. And I remember one time the angels said to me, when I was really nervous about, like, is this information really from the angels? They said, you're walking on your dad's feet. You're leading on the dance floor. And I don't know why, but when I would dance with a man, I would just, I was a horrible dancer, romantic dancer. And I would always kind of like start trying to lead.
Right.
And so I intuitively, immediately understood what they were saying to me is just let this flow. Like, don't try to lead us. Just let us flow through you. And then I understood how to accept them better. So those are the types of analogies that they'll say to me. And nobody ever knew that about me. Like, I never even discussed that with anybody except any poor man that ever tried to leave me on the dance floor. And I was stepping on his toes.
You know, that is one of the hardest challenges, isn't it, in the beginning? Just to trust and allow. Sometimes, because you come from the corporate world just like I did.
Yes.
So it's very mental, it's very structured, it's very cerebral. So you have to think, you have to plan, you have to strategize. And then you start a business that's spiritual with the Akashic Records. And like for me, people are telling me, what's your 3-year plan? I don't know. It's where spirit leads me. Okay, she's gone off the deep end now. But that is a trust that we need to develop, that yes, those messages are real and they do make an impact. For instance, those messages, if we go back to our time in Sedona, when we first arrived, right, and we went down that little path and there was a river that was a little bit dry because it was April. So the river was like this wide instead of being wider, but it was still, the energy was just, wow. And I just opened myself up to the energy, and so did you. And then you started receiving images and images and images, and I could just feel it was huge. And then together we just worked through the different spirit guides who were there, just feeling welcomed, feeling, a mantle being put on our shoulders. It was just so beautiful. And I have to say, from that day on, my life has been different.
Wow. I'll tell you, if we really shared the whole story of that day, people probably would bring the white coat guys in.
Yeah.
And I do want to preface this by saying one of the challenges of actually opening up to spiritual work is, especially to people that are corporate people, is the looks that you get about like people that are non-believers or not spiritually awakened. And I don't even want to make a judgment about non-spiritually awakened, because even spiritually awakened people, sometimes if we would tell the incredible stories about our moments in Sedona, we just kept being led down paths, and it was so incredible. But I do want to say that's one of the challenges for me personally. I can't speak for you about deciding to work in the spirit realm is people kind of look at you like, ooh,
Yeah.
And the other thing I really liked about Andrea Hess is she was a professional opera singer. So Jazz and I are corporate people. She was a professional opera singer. And then when you get this calling, basically, it's quite a challenge to share with people. And the one thing I was telling Jazz, before we started the recording was that I do medium work, and it has taken me years to let anybody know that. And this summer, finally, one of my spirit guides came. Oh my God, her name was Lucille, and she had a beehive hairdo, and she likes to drink and smoke. And she lived on this side, and she is the one that told me, she's like, if you open up to that, I will send people to you. She says there's a line around the corner of people that need to talk to people in the past. So can I share one of the story? I think was one of the most incredible readings that I ever did for it wasn't for me, it was for somebody else. But again, it ended up, there was some personal influence. So I was working with somebody that truly doesn't believe in this, but her girlfriend so much believed in it. And I've helped her girlfriend through a divorce for 3 years now. And almost everything that she and I worked on, or that I was guided to tell her, came true. So she is such a true believer in me that she wanted to share my gift with other people, even though I was hesitant. So she asked one of her friends, we had this little group meeting and I was doing private readings. And the woman asked me a little bit about her children, and I was going through that, and she was quite impressed because I knew her daughter, but I didn't know her son. And then all of a sudden, in the beginning of the reading, there was this, and I could feel it come from here to here, and it just sat there, and it was this beautiful energy of a male. And I knew that she might have not been ready to talk to him, so I let him sit there. And I didn't quite know what to do with that at the time. And finally she said, my father passed away. And she says, I want to see if we can communicate with him. And I said, well, let me see. There's this gentleman with me. Let me see if it's your father. I was pretty sure it was. And I asked him, and it was. And she asked me some specific questions. I shared with her. Then all of a sudden, the weirdest thing happened is this energy came from here to there. And I thought, what the heck is going on? It was another man. I'm like, we're not inviting anybody else. Like, what's going on? And so all of a sudden, I kind of had a sense that it was my father. And it's really hard for me to talk to my parents. I can talk to my aunt because she's silly. But my parents, I have a harder time because I think I get emotional. So anyways, I thought this was my dad. And I said, is this my dad? Now, just to preface this, this person I knew from my area in Pennsylvania. I never knew about any other places that she lived, and I quite honestly thought that this is the only place that she ever lived was in Pennsylvania, because I think she went to high school locally, and she's about my age. So with that being said, my father comes in, and I said, is that you? And it was my uncle. And he said, no, dumbass. That's how I knew it was my uncle. Sorry, guys. But my uncle kind of talked like that. And I said, Uncle Jack, what are you doing here? Well, meanwhile, the woman was asking me questions, and those two started to talk, and I could feel it. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could feel it. And I thought, okay, now this is really getting interesting. So finally I thought, I don't know what's going on. And I said to the woman, where did you live? Where did your father originate from? And she said the same town and the same state, which was not Pennsylvania, that my father lived. Okay. It was a very little nuance of the town. And I was like, holy. Then I was kind of getting involved in this. And here the two of them were knew each other. And the first visual image that I saw in the beginning of this reading was an old-fashioned Buick. It was blue and it was white, and I told her after the reading I would find an actual image of it. Here, she went back and asked her mother, who was still alive, and that was the car that he met her in. So when they met on their first date, this old Buick, and I knew it was a Buick, and I don't know cars, so the guides really have a great way of even being able to communicate that. And so it was a Buick. And then I start thinking, when I thought that my uncle might have sold him a car. So I said, when we get out of this reading, I know that my cousin just uploaded a picture of my uncle because it was his birthday, and he's gone too. So I said, when we, get done, let's do that. Like, let's find, she goes, I have a picture of my dad. So we get our phones and we hold up our phones to each other. And can you believe they're both in Korean War uniforms? So either they knew each other in the Korean War, or they knew each other in this little town in Ohio. So we tried to document that. I tried to document with my cousin. Neither one of us can completely confirm that, except for the fact it's very odd that both of them live in the same little town, and it's very odd that he had a Buick, and it's very odd that they were both Korean War vets. Wow. So, and the same age. Wow. So, like within a couple of years. So that's probably my most favorite medium story about talking to people on the other side, because there was some validation, with the Buick and the fact that, they both were in these Korean War outfits and their uniforms. So that's my favorite medium story, and I'm sticking to it. Healing to your client too? Yeah, I think it was kind of blowing her out of the water because remember, she was partially a non-believer.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to see and hear all those components go together, and she got some very specific messages from her father why he passed before her mother was able to arrive. That was done intentionally. And I think that there was some peace that came to her through the experience.
Good. I think that that is one of the biggest gifts that we can give our clients too, is that sense of inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's with their grieving process, like you did, or with the way they handle their business, different choices they make, even like in your case, being adopted. I know a lot of people have been adopted and have a similar story than yours, like just not feeling quite right. And then you get to a place of acceptance and peace and forgiveness. Once you understand there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
We have those extra vows, those extra contracts, those extra imprints, and we can release them.
That's what I love, again, about the Akashic, records. And it's so darn quick.
It is.
Like I do NLP, and I'm certified in it. And there are times I still use it, even as I'm in the Akashic Records. I've been told to go out of the Akashic Records and go into NLP. However, for the most part, what I can do in the Akashic Records is so quick and so powerful that some of the other modalities aren't as needed all of the time. So, yeah.
And it gives tools to the people we help on how to make new choices.
Yes.
Once in the Akashic Records, we make changes to a person's energetic being, energetic blueprint. And those changes are done in the fourth dimensional or the fifth dimensional or higher. But we live in the 3D. So sometimes for the change to really be anchored into their body, into the way they live their lives, they have to make new choices and new actions. Because otherwise, we just go back to those patterns, the repeating patterns like we're talking about. So we raise awareness, we remove the imprint, and then it becomes easier to change your life.
Absolutely.
And that's what I find is miraculous.
One of the times I felt kind of bad in a reading, but it gave the same result that you're talking about, is I was doing a reading for somebody that I knew who probably didn't quite believe in what I did. However, they were in some significant pain, like life debilitating pain. And the life debilitating pain, when I opened up the records, were around the energies that lived around her. Her husband, her daughter, and her daughter's boyfriend. They were all sucking her dry. And so it depleted her energy so much that we only got about 15 minutes into the reading, if that, and she had to shut the reading off. And it's probably one of the few times in over 3 years that that's ever happened to me. However, the young man that was living in her home, that was the boyfriend, moved out. The daughter moved out, and she stopped working in her business that was depleting her. That was part of the family's business. And so she was left then with the issues that she has with her husband, but she still wants, obviously, to be with him. So she's healing slowly. It's been probably 1.5 years. But even just the awareness without even a reaction to the awareness, just even in the unconscious mind, it started to transcend the relationship. So I mean, that's how powerful, this can be. I love doing. I'll do this until there's no more air left in my lungs. This to me will never be work.
And then who knows?
And then who knows what I could do, right?
Oh, you'll come and tickle my toes if you go first, and I'll do the same for you, I'm sure.
Can we tell them a soul sister story?
Sure.
I don't remember. We were in a coaching program for about 1 year, and we were in the concluding seminar. And that's when we finally physically got to meet. And we were just kind of sharing either our personal growths or what we really liked about everybody in the group. And the whole time we were doing this, I start hearing this song in my head. It was, what was the soul sister song?
Soul sister.
Do. And I'm like, okay. I don't know what's going on. Now, how did we become aware that both of us were singing that in our head?
I think it was my turn to go around the circle. So I had to, went through everyone. And then with you, said I couldn't even talk. I said, okay, there's this song and it's really loud. And you said, oh my God, me too.
So that's basically the type of connection that the two of us have. It's almost like it's some sort of mirror image of another half of the soul.
Yeah.
I wish we lived closer because I would love to do healing work together because we're very complementary.
Yes.
And what I love about Jazz is she really feels it. And that's my missing component. Now, a couple of times when you were talking today, when you talked about our Sedona experience, I started getting chills all over my body. And that, again, is not my primary source. But you'll start like getting an earache or whatever. And I want to tell this cute story because I'm like, oh, God, Jazz, I really don't want to have this. I said, I would never want to have that because I have enough pains in my body at times.
Yeah.
So we were kind of laughing about it. And then you were going through something and all of a sudden I get this pain in my side.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm pretty sure, we were pretty sure I was doing a release.
Yeah, there was a lot of processing in that retreat that we went through together because there was a lot of old emotional, mental, spiritual baggage that needed to be released for our, not just our businesses, but the way that we serve other people so that we can really step into our power of service. So we just went through a whole lot of transformation there in Arizona. So, and for me, when I transform and I transmute a lot of energy, it goes to my liver because the liver, just like in the physical body, the liver filters everything. According to the Chinese medicine, the liver filters all your emotions.
Yeah.
So I had to filter out a whole lot of fear and you said that in your introduction too. Doing this type of work feels like a huge responsibility.
Mm-hmm. It is. Because
people are putting their trust in us and in the messages that we receive from the other side and from the spirit guide. And you probably feel the same as me sometimes, like, why would they trust little old me?
It's very humbling.
Yeah.
It's very humble. And to stay out of your ego, because this is, I mean, people get pretty like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. And I always say it's through me.
Yes.
I just open the channel. And when I speak to my clients, I do say, this is not me speaking anymore. Mm-hmm. I will refer to myself as Candy if they give me an insight that, like, of a little story that needs to be reflected. Mm-hmm. But one thing I wanted to reflect about, like, right now with when you were saying, like when I start talking about how you actually feel things, one time I had a shamanic healer, and this is before I even realized that I was fully awakened. And I think I was starting to wake up at the time, and I needed some physical healing and emotional healing. So he was Native American, and he would take an eagle's feather and he would unwrap you with the eagle's feather. Energetically, and then he would do some healing. And his modality is he would burp the whole time. So he'd be like burping, and I said, you know what, George, if you start farting, I'm done. He goes, no, I don't do that. And I said, well, thank goodness. But all these wonderful modalities that lead us and that possibly healed me to open up my channels so that I can do this work and use the Akashic Records, and I just feel such a gift. Like, I'm not saying I have such a gift. I'm saying thank you. I'm just saying it's such a gift to be able to experience looking at the soul of another human being, and that they trust you. So you're looking at their human self and then going into their soul level. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And the image coming, it's really like standing at the edge of a precipice and looking at the sunrise. It's that awe, it's that beauty, it's that the awakening and the promises, the promise for the future, all your hopes, your dreams.
You know, you're talking about this right now, and I'm getting an image in my mind, and I want to share it because it must be important to share. So some of my, if you could see my office in the summer, I'd be embarrassed, but you would laugh at me. When I get my biggest connection is in a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my whole office set up. I have my drinking glass. I have a beach towel. I have like my notebook and my pen so I could take notes, so I can make sure that I give everybody the best information possible from what they're saying. So I also do some meditation in the pool. So I was sitting out in my pool and I was doing this meditation, and the sun was setting. This is, I think, what prompted me. And all of a sudden, I start hearing this overwhelming amount of messages about, think of this. You know, at night when you see all the stars, well, think about the largeness of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
If you could see everything that's really out there like you would see the sun, you would be incredibly overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just giving me all this messages about like our planets and how vast the universe is. They were showing me in things instead of one-dimensional, they made this 3-dimensional graph of our universe. And then I even asked them the question I'll never forget, like, where really heaven is.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about different dimensions of even heaven. So I was floored with that particular meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also saying that we come to the universes that we need to learn, that this isn't the only universe, which was, it's still, my mind isn't quite around the concept, but they said that you're most comfortable here right now. And why we could see like spirits, like all of us can, you know, be connected to the spirits and energies of the other people, is because they're really not that far away. Like heaven's not this vast, remote place, that it's almost like an essence around us, almost like a holographic essence. So I don't know why I was drawn to share that, but maybe somebody that will be listening to this needed that information. I'm not sure, but I saw it 3 times before I shared it, so I thought, okay, I got it. I'm gonna say something about it now. So.
And that's how we listen to our intuition. It's just like, as a teaching point, when you see the same sign and image and symbols, and 3 times magic number. So
okay,
following up with your intuition and sharing that.
I don't know who that was for, but I'll tell you, it was very, and I don't even know verbally if I'm able to articulate what images were shared with me. I hope I did some justice to it. So yeah.
It's good. I do believe too that heaven is not that far removed from us, and that we create our own heaven on earth through our choices. And working with the Akashic Records, it helps us make those choices and those decisions that are the most aligned with our soul.
Yes.
And when I talk of alignment and the right decisions and the positive decisions for us, positive and negative doesn't always mean that a negative choice is evil or bad. A negative choice is what brings us away from our divinity. And we're all made differently. So a good choice for me could be a very bad choice for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to know, when we look into the Akashic Records, what are the best choices for us to feel aligned and create that heaven on earth. Because if more of us walk this path into this heaven, into this dimension, the world would be a different place.
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's just about on the cuspus of being a different place, because one of the things that I was, the gift that I had is there was a mother that was working with me with her daughter, and her daughter was so intrigued by this that I was working with the daughter as well. So the daughter would ask me specific questions, and I'd give her specific insights, and she'd go back and do the work. Within 3 meetings, this young 12-year-old was able to do readings for her mother without any real formal training from me. It was just, she asked a question that she needed, and I gave her the insight. So I was drawn to actually ask the record keepers, why this happened. And they said this, and I thought it was quite interesting. They said, we've placed these new children on the planet that are actual different souls.
Mm-hmm.
They're more developed souls, and we thought that we would start utilizing them at the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
He said that there's some things that need to have some transition earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scary, or, I'm not saying, it's doomsday, none of that stuff. What I'm saying is that some of the energies of these children are needed now, and they actually kind of nudged me to work with these 12-year-olds, which I haven't yet done. And I can't even believe I'm sharing this because I kept it a secret because I don't want to own it yet. But they said that these children need to be awakened because they will be of service to us now. Mm-hmm. There's some things that are really needing to be transitioned, mm-hmm. and that they're so awakened and so much more powerful than our energies of the souls at this time. Yeah. Like at my age group, I should say. So,
yeah, we really have to step out of our social perceptions of what a child is.
Oh, yeah, they're not children. They are these highly evolved souls. Even my son said to me, and I probably kill me for sharing this, but we were at Disney World this past week for Thanksgiving. It was his 16th birthday. And then we went over to what's called Disney Springs. And it's this place that has a lot of food. And I think they used to have nightclubs. I don't believe it's so much that anymore. And he wanted to go over there to eat and to see like the Coke factory. Mm-hmm. And it was about 7:30, and they said, look into the stars. Mm-hmm. And so my son and I were standing there, and I don't know how they did this, but all of a sudden they start manipulating the stars into Christmas trees. And it was weird because there weren't any laser beams. So I don't know if it holographically shot up, but it was really cool. And you know what he said to me? Mm-hmm. Jazz, he said, Mom, he goes, I've dreamt this before. I've seen this before. And I went, oh no. I said, you know what, Phoenix? I said, that's how I started this, is I would have dreams. I would dream a whole day ahead of time when I was like 6 years old. And then the dream would start coming through, and it was a little bit scary, but I didn't share it with anybody because I don't even know how a 6-year-old would say that. Mm-hmm. But I think he's awakened, and not sure what to do about that yet for him. That will be the next part of my business, though, is I really do believe I'll be helping people to train them in how to do the Akashic Records. I've been told that. Mm-hmm. Energetically, I just haven't had enough time and energy to go into my records deep and long enough to give that information. But I think that's the next thing I really, really want to do.
Good. And I know that it is needed. I know it's needed.
I think it is.
It's just, again, that fear of responsibility, because when you work with children, it's even more heightened.
Yes.
You want the best for them.
And also they have a hard time because of the peer pressure. Could you imagine if he would have said that to, a guy friend of his? Mm-hmm. And I immediately understood it, because it's almost a different language when he said, I dreamt this the night before. Mm-hmm. And my daughter's the same way. She is very intuitive as well. Mm-hmm. But isn't it funny how if we sneeze, it's natural. If we learn to drive a car, it's natural. But when we have intuition, which we all do, mm-hmm. I think that the first inclination is almost to block it or not accept it. You sneeze because there's a reason why you sneeze. There's a release. Something's tickling your nose. Yeah. And when you're intuitive and it's there, it's so natural.
Yeah. We block. I know for myself, it was a fear of the devil growing up Catholic. Because some of my first dreams were also at age 6, 7. Yeah. And I astral traveled, and I didn't understand that coming back, that really hard landing in the body. I landed really bad 2 or 3 times, and I was told that was the devil's work. But it's only like in my late 30s that I understood, I must have astral traveled when I was 6, right?
Yeah.
But you shut it down because of what people say, and because people say you're stupid, because you don't fit in. And let's face it, in our society, we want to fit in. That's
our
program. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's the work that we both do with clients too, is to overcome that. So then we can sneeze and burp and fart.
Spiritually. Hey, whatever moves the body, baby.
Liver pains and, oh yes, it's beautiful.
Breaking windows.
Yes, yes. That's another story. Maybe we'll keep for another time, because we have to wrap up already. Can you believe it?
Oh my gosh, I have so much fun with you always.
Yes. So wrapping up, I just want to cover just a few things, and we did so much more. Like I never know where these conversations will bring us, but we talked so much about spiritual awakening here, which is a little bit more than the Akashic Records. But I think that through our stories, the viewers and listeners are going to understand the potential of the Akashic Records to shift their life, to be brought into more of the spiritual awakening. That the Akashic Records is like this big Google where you put in your search, and then you get the answers that you want to receive. And that's like the Coles Notes of it. And that it's a beautiful, beautiful, loving modality where you really get to change your life, and it enhances your life in just so many different ways. Just a few moments ago, you talked about meditations by the pool, and I know that you have a meditation that you'd like to share with everyone as well. So.
Well, I just wanted to give all your listeners a gift. Mm-hmm. I was guided to do a meditation called Limitless. Mm-hmm. So I've recorded that on an MP3, and there's music in the background, and I can't even believe that I could listen to it myself, because sometimes it's hard to listen to your own voice. I've probably listened to it and been guided to listen to it about 5 or 6 times. Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful meditation, and for anybody that's listening, you just have to email me, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then there's 2 gifts I have. Mm-hmm. The second gift is, if you want a taste of the Akashic Records, I'm going to do an Akashic channeling on December 9th at noon. And on Jazz's post, when she posts this, I've yet to actually done the download for the Zoom link, but mm-hmm. I promise I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do clearing of blocks, and I'm going to, if you're having any trouble with 2016, like the final goals that maybe you've set and weren't able to achieve, I'm going to release some blocks for that specifically, and do some healing work, so that as you step into 2017, mm-hmm. January 1st, that you will have more productivity, more achievement, and more peace in your soul. So that's going to be the outcome, and that will be at noon on December 9th. It'll be a Zoom meeting, and even if you can't be there, I'll record it. Even if you just share with me that you want your intention placed into that healing will be for you, mm-hmm. and that I will be able to channel whatever needs will come through me. So my website is candysoulreadings.com, and Jazz will post that. Mm-hmm. If you just go onto my website and hit contact, and then just put free gifts, that's all you have to say, and just provide your email and some of the information. And if you need to make a notation, say, hey, I won't be there, but this is the block that I have, or just put me in your intention, you'll still get the healing. Mm-hmm. So it's an Akashic healing circle, and they're so powerful. And the best thing about them is when I do them, like I've had 12 people like in attendance, and at least 8 of them will come like privately. They'll come over and say, I know you were talking just to me. And I say yes, because it's true. Mm-hmm. 8 out of 12 people think it was just for them. That's how powerful it is. So I just wanted to thank you again for letting me be part of your world and sharing me with some of your friends and your colleagues and your clients. And that was the gift I wanted to offer for them taking the time to listen. So thank you.
Thank you. That was a lovely hour. It went by just so quickly. Unbelievable. So I will be posting, and probably when I'll do the editing, I'll try to put the little bars of information so you can look below. Yes. Information, see how good I am with the editing. Still learning lots. So contact Candace for your free gifts, wonderful meditations, and Candace is just wonderful. She did an Akashic record reading for myself too for my birthday last year, and it was just so wonderful. I love to set up my year energetically with readings, so that was my gift in May. And it's just beautiful. Candace is just such a wonderful, yummy energy.
Thank you.
Very deep, and yet very light and joyful. So you wear your name very well.
Thank you so much. And Jazz also did a reading for me, and it was so interesting because there was a lot of specificity with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the language patterns that you notice. Like I use the word beautiful a lot, and that's part of the soul essence of me. And just being able to say, you know what, I do like beautiful things, and it's okay because it's part of who my soul is.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful gift, and many others, but that was one specific thing. Thank you.
All right, so we'll wrap up, and thank you. And we'll see everyone at the next Conversations with Jazz in another month or so.
Thank you for doing this. Bye.
Bye.